Okay, chapter 22, part 2. Now we can look at evolution at two levels. We can look at evolution in the microevolution sense, which is literally the change in allele frequencies in a population over time, from generation to generation. So this would be how an individual population itself tends to change in response to a changing environment. Or we can look at evolution in a very broad sense called macroevolution. And this is a broad pattern of evolution that includes giving rise to whole new groups of animals or plants, and it also considers the impacts of mass extinction events. So genetic variation makes evolution possible. So recall some of the things we talked about in Biology 1406 that helps describe where this genetic variation comes from. Well, we know that genetic variation can come from mutations in the DNA molecules themselves, a change in missing one base here or there, or misreplicating a base during the DNA replication process can all lead to a change in a DNA sequence that can lead to a change in an amino acid sequence, etc. We also can see that altering the gene number or position, changes on the chromosomes, can also provide some genetic variation. Many organisms have very rapid reproductive rates, and though they're not living things technically, viruses are known to adapt very, very quickly in this same fashion. And then there's just good old sexual reproduction to help promote genetic variation, not only because it allows two different individuals to contribute to the genome of the new offspring, but in many instances, meiosis as part of this sexual reproduction life cycle helps to promote genetic diversity because of crossing over and independent assortment that we talked about. Now, at the population level, changes in allele frequencies can cause evolutionary change. And so we know that natural selection, as described by Darwin, is one of the most important types of mechanisms that can cause evolutionary change. And so remember that in a nutshell, that this is differential reproductive success based upon adaptations to a particular environment. But sometimes there are just some random or chance events that can alter these allele frequencies. This is sometimes called genetic drift. An example of genetic drift is the founder effect. And this is where a small portion of a population somehow becomes isolated. So for instance, a group of birds being blown from the South American mainland onto an unpopulated Galapagos island is known as the founder effect. It's not really the environment's fitness that brought them there, that made them there. It was just some random chance event like a storm. By the same token, genetic drift can be exemplified by the bottleneck effect, which is some random event that dramatically reduces a population size, not really based upon the individual's fitness. So a terrible storm, for instance, a hailstorm that might wipe out a population of turkeys. The hailstones don't pick the less fit organisms most of the time. It's just sort of a random event that reduces a population size and therefore can bottleneck it. Now, change in allele frequencies by the movement of individuals in or out of a population, well, this prevents the isolation of these alleles. And as we'll see in just a moment here, once these alleles begin to get isolated, now we begin to disrupt something called gene flow. And as long as there is gene flow in a population, we're going to see the population stay fairly the same. But as soon as those alleles become isolated, we're going to begin to see adaptations and population changes occur that can produce new species.